Bahamas, and it was a themed cruise, and there was a nice pool area.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing about the cruise, if you haven't been on a cruise, and this is Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel with Jeannie Devon, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM.
We're having a little fantasy about what Jeff would do with the ferry system.
How I would manage
before we launch into the slime of Alaska politics.
The ferry. And in the Valley, 1020 AM, 92.5 FM. If you want to give us a call, the number is 569-1080. On Anchorage, 375-5868 in the Valley. Now, what I was saying was, when I was on the cruise, I noticed a couple of things. One, you didn't actually pay for anything. You just put it on your bill.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to work pretty well for me because I probably ordered some more alcohol than
that's
I would
why
have normally.
They do that.
Right.
I'm
So
sure.
let's start with that. We'll get like a little Alaska ferry
card. There
boom,
you go.
Automatic debit. Boom.
Like
you're
Easy
done.
Pass.
Right. And we're not communists here. We're going to make a little profit.
I like it.
So would you ride on my boat, my ferry boat?
I would.
Okay. So there we go. We have one. Bonnie, you a big boat person or cruises?
I love cruises.
So I want to have my own kind of Alaskan cruise line.
I don't want to be in Alaska, though. It'd have to be Caribbean.
Yeah.
If you have 100 people, we will come pick you up there.
for a good, and if you're Alaskan, boom, we're going to, some discounts maybe?
It's like those services. So I was at the NRA convention recently.
I want to talk about
that. They have a service where if you subscribe to it, they have like giant scary men with guns who will come find you wherever you are in the world and like evacuate you from bad places.
Okay, so I've heard about this. Some travelers I know were telling me they signed up. It's almost like an insurance.
Right. And you call this number and they're like, we will come get you. And they send people and they like save you and drag you out of.
I've heard they're very professional. They have helicopter, they have aircraft, and they will come evacuate you or they will pull you out of a.
And you know that the people doing that love their job. That they're just like, I can't believe I get paid to do this.
You know, they also have kidnapping insurance for executives or people who go to places and maybe not so stable places. I feel like I'd be not.
You would be kidnapped?
No. Well, I've gone to some pretty weird, strange places, but I was wondering what my premium might be.
I don't know. You're kind of in demand.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I could get a good rate. And how does that work? I mean, do the kidnappers call this? Like, do you have a card? Call this number
for the ransom?
Yeah, and then how much are you? Like, I'm only insured for $1 million, so sorry guys. I ask for 2, and then you say 2, I say 100,000. We meet in the middle.
I don't know. I've never actually negotiated a kidnapping.
I mean, either have I. But if I was going to do that, I would imagine you go high, I go low.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Million Foffer.
I could do like a crowdsourcing option. All right, this is Jeff Landfield. We're going to a break. I'm filling in for Glen Biegel with Jeannie Devon. 1080 AM, 95.1 FM in Anchorage, 1020 AM, 92.5 FM in the Valley. Give us a call, 569-1080 in Anchorage, 375-58. Jeannie. Okay, we're back. This is Jeff Landfield. I'm filling in for Glenn with Jeannie Devon. 1080 AM, 95.1 FM, 1020 AM, 92.5 FM in the Valley. Jeannie, you just recently were at the NRA convention. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Well, I normally go to a different convention every year, but I got kind of burned out and I was like, I want to go to do something completely different than my norm. So I got the opportunity to go to the NRA convention, which was in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, that must have been.
And I had never been in that area of the country
It's hot
ever.
there.
It's not the heat, Jeff. It's the humidity.
Well, it's both. It's both.
It's both.
It's both.
Yeah, this Alaska girl was like, I was croaking. I was hot all the time.
I was in Memphis one time in July.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
See, this was like early April, and I was like, oh my God, it's so hot.
I saw some of the pictures you posted.
Yeah.
There was some firepower.
Oh yeah, there really, really was. And I haven't been around guns a lot. I've been around guns some, but not a lot.
Well, you went with the militia last year, right?
Right. I did the militia rendezvous weekend, and that was really fun. So yeah, so it was 9 acres, 9 acres of guns. I know there are people out there salivating right now.
Now you were there, weren't you at you were there, but wasn't there a political event going on? Was that?
Well, it was two, it felt like two different events to me, really, because part of it was, just like gun collectors and people who love guns who are going to look at all the latest offerings from the different, gun manufacturers and accessories and just everything that goes along with sort of, that gun culture. And then the other part of it was political. And that was really interesting because it was basically, a parade of 2016 Republican presidential candidates.
Hillary Clinton did not stop by.
She did not stop by. No, it was pretty much start to finish because it was the same weekend that she officially announced, finally, after 2 years of like, I don't know, she finally announced that she would be running for president.
Yeah, that's the weirdest one. We all know.
Right. It's like,
Everyone knew.
We all know. Just say it. So that was really interesting as well. And a lot of people spent a lot of time talking about Hillary Clinton rather than talking about, what they would do. So that was sort of annoying. I would rather hear about what somebody's going to do than how much they dislike somebody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's much better to hear your ideas or your solutions rather than why he's bad or why she's bad. So the political part of it was part of the event. It was.
They have they're divided. They have sort of a political wing, and C3, and so their political arm held the leadership forum.
Okay.
And so Oliver North was there, and
Ollie North.
Yeah.
There's a really funny, like a Family Guy cartoon skit of him.
Of Oliver North?
Yeah, it's like Ollie, it's a Family Guy type thing about Ollie North, and it goes into his deals with the Iran Contra and then the secretary.
Right.
It's very funny.
Yeah. I was so appalled because, all right, every one of us, regardless of where we are on the political spectrum, every one of us at some point has become really disillusioned. The moment that you realize, like the Matrix, the moment that you realize that
you took the blue pill,
that there's corruption, that people lie, that being under oath means nothing, all this stuff. That moment where your lovely naive self realizes that this is all a sham. Mm-hmm. So Oliver North happened to be the one for me. He was the one that like crushed my naivete. So because I was watching the Iran Contra stuff.
Quick update: Oliver North was involved in the Iran Contra scandal in the 80s.
Right,
he kind of took the fall.
Arms for hostages.
They were selling missiles to Iran, right? And then I'm trying to think. It was the Contras were buying missiles.
So he was basically
with Iranian money.
What he was doing basically was he was arming the Contras, and he was doing this. He was working on behest of Ronald Reagan, who was not yet the president.
And they were in Nicaragua.
And Jimmy Carter was the president. And it was this whole, it was just bad. But the worst part, for my 14-year-old brain watching this, was when they swore him in and he put his hand on the Bible and he said, I will tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then proceeded to not recall, in quotes, like 500 things.
Didn't
And I
it
was
say-
like, and I'm sitting here going, how can he not recall?
Didn't there
He
really-
just swore to tell the truth. And if he really doesn't recall, he should go to the doctor.
Didn't the really attractive secretary destroy a bunch of documents?
Yes.
I remember that
I
one
can't
too.
even remember her name.
I wasn't even born yet, but
She's-
I read.
You remembered that part.
I'm a reader. So he spoke there?
So he gave the invocation.
Oh no.
He did. He gave the
Of
invocation.
all the people you could
I know.
you could
And
sign
so
up to do that.
I was on the media platform with my little jaw hanging open watching this. And after he gave the invocation, he talked about the upcoming presidential election. And he said, quote, I demand a president with integrity. And I was like, really? You do?
There
How
was
about
I
that?
imagine this was a pretty packed event.
Oh, it was packed. There were thousands in the hall, and yeah, they had a whole long line of speakers. Marco Rubio was there, and Rick Perry was there, and Jeb Bush was there. Jeb Bush was a dud. I expected Jeb Bush to sort of like, rise to the occasion.
Mhm.
He was reading off of paper. He didn't even have, I mean, they had a teleprompter there.
Yeah, that's so
And
1998.
he was all like dorky and nervous, and he was his papers, and he would like look down and read a couple sentences and then look up and try and remember the sentences, but then forget and have to look down. It was kind of painful.
Yeah, I think I actually like his stance on immigration, and I've read a lot about him,
Mhm.
and I think his problem is some of his positions aren't exactly in line with what the kind of the right wing of the base really believes.
Mhm.
So
Well, Marco Rubio, the same thing. I mean,
yeah, but he's even backtracked a little bit since he filed. Marco
Yeah.
Rubio. He's kind of he used to have different. He's backtracked on some of his positions regarding
Mhm.
immigration, and he's Cuban.
But I will tell you what, the one who got the biggest applause of the night was Ted Cruz by far.
Yeah, he seems like
And then second, and I shouldn't have said by far, because second in a close second was Scott Walker.
Governor of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Right? Okay,
Yeah,
we have Governor Walker and
Yes.
Governor Walker
I know.
because we have a governor.
See, for me, it's like good Governor Walker, evil Governor Walker.
Do
we
people
have
ever
the,
confuse
we have
you?
the good one.
Do people ever confuse you say Governor Walker and they
Yeah.
get
Well,
mixed up?
it's really funny because I have this sticker, as you can see on my little Mac, that says Walker Governor 2014.
Oh yeah, right.
So depending on who's looking at my laptop and what state I'm in, I get some
Because I mean, face it,
interesting-
most people don't know the governors of most states.
right.
they
But
don't
Scott
know.
Walker has certainly been in the national.
But people know about him, right?
Yeah.
Or Jam Brewer for a while was
Yeah.
kind of well known.
But yeah, they look at Walker Governor 2014, and then they look at me, and then they look at it, and I'm like, no, good Governor
so-
Walker.
We're a few minutes past 4:15, but it looks like John Rono has called in. So let's go to John.
Hey guys.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. We were really worried about you. We're glad you're here.
Sorry.
You're alive.
Yes, I'm. Put it this way, I'm having a day. I
You
wish
and
I
me
could-
both, brother.
Yes, I wish I could be there with you both in person, but this is unfortunately the best I could do.
Real quick before I forget, I want to thank you again for filming our Federation of Community Councils State of Our City event a few months ago.
Absolutely,
Those-
I would have been there anyway. It's a great event.
The videos turned out very well. We appreciate that.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, definitely.
So you're the managing editor or the editor of the Alaska Commons, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've had that I've been here a long time, as long as I can remember. That's been around.
Yeah, I mean, it was my personal blog that I started in 2009, I think. And then I was a staffer on the assembly for a while, so it went away. And then we brought it back in 2013. So the current iteration has been around since 2013.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, recently you posted a couple days ago an article about this DeBosk, this ABT, and something Ethan may have said, and I read that, and I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
And, what you think about that, because I was talking earlier to some friends, and it's to me it's so unfortunate when people run for office and they have things in their personal life brought up, but if those things are contrary to positions you've taken, then if you're seen as a very kind of social conservative,
Mhm.
and things happen that might not be in line with that, or that might challenge that, those things are probably going to get brought up, and rightfully so.
Yeah. For this, it was literally I just got a couple calls yesterday morning with people telling me to tune into KFQD. Casey Reynolds was guest hosting while Bernadette Wilson's tending to the new child.
The Unity baby.
Yes. And I tuned in, and I guess what happened was over the weekend, the Reverend Jerry Prevost of Anchorage Baptist Temple, who obviously is well known for being outspoken, offered a sermon that accused Ethan Berkowitz of making a comment back when he was on the co-host of the Bernadette Wilson show, where he supported fathers and sons getting married.
Right.
So that was interesting.
See, I can't even believe that anybody, I mean, just on its face, that's so absurd. Like, are there really people that actually believe that there are really other people who really believe that?
Well, so
do you know what I'm saying?
Someone told me, I heard earlier on the radio that the context, and this is like so ridiculous, this is even being talked about, but the context of that was this guy called, and it was about if you did that as a contractual obligation for medical benefits. Like if you were 21 or 26 or 30 and you couldn't get medical insurance, well, they were asking in that scenario, is that possible? Which frankly, it's ridiculous, but it just seems like whatever was said, and no one really knows because I've never heard any audio of it.
I don't think it exists anymore, does it, Sean?
No, I talked to both Casey Reynolds and Joe Campbell, the station manager at KFTD, and their policy is any audio after 6 months gets automatically deleted. So that's the most interesting part about it. Prevost in the sermon said that somebody told him about the radio spot. Amy Dembowski also said that she vaguely remembered hearing the radio spot while she was cleaning her kitchen, but nobody has the audio. It's a little weird.
So all of this is going on based upon a second-hand remembrance.
Yeah.
Hey, John, we have to go to a break in 30 seconds. Can you stand for one more segment?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back. This is Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel with Jeannie Devon. Give us a call, 569-1080 in Anchorage, 375-5868 in the Valley. We're talking to John Arono from Alaska Commons. We'll be right back.
He took the midnight train going
Ooh, welcome back. Is that what song is that, Jeannie? I like it. It's an
It's
80s.
that song from the 80s.
That's great.
Nightlife Forever.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Or Foreigner. No, it's Nightlife by Foreigner. See, I'm a kid of the 80s, but I don't remember any of this
So
stuff.
astute. Thank you. Jeff Landfield. I'm filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm host of Jeannie Devon as my co-host. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, Jeff.
1080 AM, 95.1 FM in Anchorage, 1020 AM, 92.5 FM in the Valley. We are talking to John Rono from the Alaska Commons. Can you hear us, John?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we were talking about the piece you wrote about Amy Domboski and some comments that were made or not made by Ethan Berkowitz regarding a father marrying a son.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jerry Prevo's comments about that. The whole thing is so weird.
It's not often that a candidate unleashes the type of October surprise on themselves.
I know, right? That's like a total surprise.
It's really strange. The funniest thing to me about the entire situation is there seems to be some definitional challenges, I guess. Both Domboski and today Jerry Prevo called into KFQD and gave his 2 cents. And both of them kept repeating that they had heard that Berkowitz had said that he supports father-son marriage. And when Reynolds would then say, well, aren't you worried about the implications of, saying that the candidate is promoting incestuous relationships? And both Domboski and Prevo immediately objected. No, I'm not saying he, supports incest.
Just father-son marriage.
Right. Prevo today even pointed out, well, the child could be 21 years old, to which Casey just kind of, I believe he just offered a wow and then reminded the Reverend that even if they're of a legal age, that's still incest.
I'm reminded of the term here, bearing false witness. I think that's not good.
Which was a term Casey used a few times today, to which Jerry Prevo repeatedly said, hey, Ethan Berkowitz isn't denying it. So, I'm not bearing false witness if he's not denying it. If he's denying it, that means he's guilty.
See, what I don't understand, if I was ever asked, I've ran for office before and, I plan to do that again. And if I was ever asked an absurd question like that, I would just say, this is so absurd and ridiculous. Of course he doesn't believe that. I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about, A, B, and C issues.
Yeah.
That the mayor is going to have to deal with in the city. And I would have just, but that didn't happen. It was, and we all heard it. It's on the, it was on the radio.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting. There are 2 debates left. It's going to be interesting to see if it pops up at either of those. Casey Reynolds made the good point that it's beneath journalists to ask Ethan whether or not he supports it.
Because, like I was saying, who would actually believe that that's a thing?
That's like that Lee Atwater guy in the 80s, when he started doing the questions, if you knew this guy beat his wife.
Right. When did you stop beating your wife?
If you knew Jeff beat his wife, would you still vote for him?
Yeah.
Like,
Jeannie, were you asking a question?
Was I?
Yeah.
Well,
who actually believes that? I do. I believe it.
That Ethan Berkowitz thinks that fathers and
No,
sons
I believe
should be able to get
that'll
married?
eventually happen. I believe that there are sick people out there, and eventually it could happen. Why not? Why wouldn't they? Anyway,
Why would they?
I thought you were asking a question, so I was answering it.
No, that's like, incest is like the hugest cultural taboo there is. There have been people around for a really long time.
I think every culture is
and
equally against that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty abhorrent to kind of everybody across the board. For a politician to come out, loud and proud and say, I think incestuous marriage is like where I stand, it seems to me absurd. I don't know, on its face.
Just to me, it's like, it's not even a city or it's this issue, which bizarre as it is, isn't even a mayoral issue. It's not something the mayor would ever deal with.
Yeah, it's not like, there is a active pro incest constituency that's lobbying for,
if they are, I've never
a social movement or
Right.
something.
And if any candidate were to say that, and any type of a seasoned candidate were to come out and say that, they would have to understand that they would never be elected to anything.
Let's take a quick caller. We have Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I guess that I have a comment. Why is it Amy Dembowski's position to have to defend the conversation of Jerry Prevost about Ethan Berkowitz? She just said on the radio, hey, you got to talk to them. Why is it up to her to say I don't believe or I believe or anything about it?
Well, I if I could address that, there's 2 points. One is the main point is Casey Reynolds pointed out yesterday that the Dembowski campaign was promoting Prevost's comments on Facebook. So that's when you're kind of promulgating a claim that her opponent supports incest, you kind of have to answer for it. And plus, if you're a candidate, it just makes sense to get out ahead and debunk a hugely bogus claim. She's had 20 plus interviews with Ethan Berkowitz. I think she'd know if he was promoting that sort of thing.
Well, number one, it's good that you give campaign advice, but I would disagree. She wanted to avoid it, I think. I do follow her on Facebook. I am a supporter of her. I haven't seen where she's promoted that Ethan said or didn't say anything about that.
Well, she spent 7 minutes on the radio yesterday saying that she did hear that claim and that she believes Ethan Berkowitz said that.
That's not true. She was responding to questions and she was trying to move on, and the interviewer was the one that kept coming back to it.
Well, like I said, I've run for office before, and it's very easy. If you're going to run for office, I'm sorry, at some point you're going to be asked questions you don't like, or you're going to be even asked unfair questions by people. And all you say is, I don't want to talk about that anymore. That's ridiculous. Let's please move on. And if the person doesn't want to move on, then say, look, I'm not going to be subjected to this kind of these tactics. Have a good day. That seems simple enough for me. I wouldn't sit there and keep entertaining these. And I've been asked bizarre questions before that I think are just absurd, and I just don't entertain them.
So let's take this and put it in the newspaper and try to make it a social issue instead of an issue of the mayoral race. Why not just, if you don't agree with it, why not just let it pass? Why keep? Well, because
it wasn't really passing. People were continuing to post it on different Facebook group pages through after the conversation yesterday. So it wasn't some isolated incident where Prevost made a comment and then everybody dropped it. It was actively being discussed.
My question is maybe bigger than all of this. I just get confused, and maybe I don't understand the actual rules on this. But if you're a church and you're getting a tax exemption status because you're a 501c3 and you're not paying property taxes and you're taking advantage of all these city services like fire, police, roads, transportation, I don't think you really should be in the business of taking sides in these.
From the pulpit, I'd agree, but he also does have a right to express his opinion. That's number one. Number two, that's not Amy's job to police everybody that says something about her opponent.
But you when you align yourself with certain people, you kind of, I don't think Jerry Prevost is ever going to endorse me.
Right.
If he does, I'd be pretty surprised.
I would point out that according to Casey Reynolds, the person that was requesting the audio from KFQD was Dave Bronson, who is, number one, the chair of the board of Alaska Family Council, which has endorsed Amy Dembowski, and who Amy Dembowski often touts that endorsement. And Dave Bronson's also a member of ABT. So, I guess I see your point that, well, no, I don't. I thought out of common decency, there are two people that are running. Somebody says a completely outrageous claim. It makes sense to get out in front of it and say, look, I know this guy. It's not true.
And it's not just somebody. It's a pretty influential member of the community. I don't know how many people go to that church, but it's a big church.
Yeah, and I agree it's a big church. I agree, that Jerry Prevost said what he said. That's not my point. My point is if Ethan Berkowitz won't even deny it, why should Amy Dembowski deny it for him?
Well, that's like
she's making the claim, and she refuses to substantiate the claim.
That's like the when did you stop beating your wife question.
Well, but okay, when did you stop beating your wife? Why would my opponent have to answer that for me?
I think it would have been, and this is if I were Amy Dembowski, I would have looked at that as an opportunity to take the high road and to appear to be a candidate with, grace and dignity and say, look,
Well,
if you have this question of my opponent, please ask him. But it sounds outrageous to me, and I would certainly hope that it's completely untrue.
And to be fair, it wouldn't hurt if Ethan said, yeah, I can't believe we're talking about this. I don't believe that. Let's just not talk about that. That would be fine.
Let me just chirp in one more time on that. I agree that she could have said that. I agree a seasoned politician would have probably said that. But part of my appeal with Amy Dembowski, she's not a professional politician like her opponent. I want somebody that is just really rolling up their sleeves and working for the citizens in the town, not their own career in politics.
Well, that's also pretty risky, though. If you want somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience, because that means that they're not yet, corrupt and jaded. That's what people were saying about Barack Obama. It's like he doesn't have the experience, and that has panned out to be true. So
Podonsky, it's Berkowitz that called himself, old Berkska or whatever it was.
Mike, hey, I appreciate the call. We're going to a break. John, I want to thank you for calling in. Appreciate that.
Thanks, both of you.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yep. This is Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel with Jeannie Devon. Give us a call, 569-1080 in Anchorage, 375-5868 in the Valley. We have Eric Cordero coming on next to talk about an event for Victims for Justice. We'll be right back. Take it to the. This is like my theme song in my life. Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm joined in studio with my lovely co-host Jeannie Devon. We're talking about a lot of different things: ferry systems, which if I operated would be in the black. Mayoral campaign. We have Eric Cordero calling in real quick. We're going to go to a caller, Terrence. Terrence, are you there?
Yep.
What's
Thanks
going
for
on?
taking my call.
Yeah, no problem.
So I want to bring up just a couple points here dealing with this issue, but specifically, there's a term being loosely thrown around here, bearing false witness.
You're talking about the mayoral issue we were just discussing.
Yeah. I mean, but it's Casey was talking about it. We're talking about this whole mayoral issue with, what Ethan said, and so the first thing, just people keep throwing this loose term around. It bothers me as a Christian that if you don't understand the Bible and what bearing false witness is, you need to go read Exodus and you need to read Deuteronomy, because it specifically says if you're accused or accusing somebody of false witness, back in old times, the judges and the priests would hold a hearing and basically determine whether or not that was true. And if it was found that you were not, that you were bearing false witness, you would have done to you as you intend to be done to your brother. So that's the first point. Second point is, the bearing false witness applies to Casey Reynolds in this Alaska Commons, because at no time was the word incest or pedophilia used. That's a sexual term. And in my career, I deal with those things. Marrying somebody and having a piece of paper that says you're married does not translate into a sexual act. And
well, I see what you're saying, but I mean, it kind of implies.
So we're splitting hairs. We're dealing with. You guys keep using the word incest. Amy has not accused incest. Neither did Prevo. And he said that today.
I never said that.
I know, but the Alaska Commons fellow did. And keeps using the word incest and pedophilia, and those are not being used. What isn't being pushed is if Ethan said something, ask him. Get him on the radio. He refused to do it yesterday. Get him on and say, no, I did not say that. And there are people that are close to Ethan and close to Casey that have told and sworn, have described this situation, that Ethan and Bernadette had an argument in studio, lasted 7 minutes, and he walked out on this issue. So why doesn't somebody ask him? There's archives of all these audios from that time frame, except that one's missing. And that bothers me.
Well, I
would like him just to say yes or no, not just that I'm too dignified. You might be too dignified to answer it, but say yes or no, because I want to know as a constituent.
Well, like I said before, I mean, I don't see what's wrong with saying, hey, I don't believe that. I don't want to talk about that. I mean, this is not a topic that I believe is relevant to this election, and this is ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
Exactly, but having this Commons guy on, and that's what he's talking about. They're loosely throwing around a subject and talking about it nonchalantly, and it's destroying somebody, and it hurts their family, and they have children, and that to me is not something that we should be promoting. I mean, it has nothing to do with the mayoral election.
Politics.
Okay, so I have a question. So you were saying that marriage does not necessarily imply a sexual relationship, but I mean, you have the whole notion of consummating a marriage, and you have as a legitimate cause for divorce a lack of sex in the marriage. So I think
it's a bad marriage, by the way.
To say that those things are not, I mean, I think that when you say marriage, that's what people think. I think to say that they're two separate things is not really accurate.
That's your interpretation, but don't use words that have never been used. You're using words that are not being used in this conversation.
I am?
And
we didn't.
Well, when I say I'll say it loosely. When anybody uses the word incest or pedophilia in this conversation, when it's never been brought up, and when Casey Reynolds, when you read that transcript, which I read 4 times yesterday, you read that transcript, he would bring it up and would drive it. He would try to go away and say, I want to talk about fiscal issues and development. He would say, okay, let's talk about that. But hey, I have this thing about Prevo. Then he brings up Prevo, and she says, look, if you have a question, ask Ethan. And he says, well, when you want to hear it? And she says, sure, I would want to hear it, because you know what? As a constituent, I would want to hear it so that I knew that he did or didn't say something. Whether he believes that, I don't believe. I think Ethan's a great guy, great family man, has solid character. He's done a lot of positive things about him as a person. He might have said something foolish, silly, stupid.
I don't know what he said, but we've all said satirical, sarcastic comments, and I'm telling you, I've filled in for that show. Those podcasts get deleted in 6 months. You can't go. You can't go back. I've tried actually to go back and find things from other people who may have said something, and I couldn't find it because it was gone. So to imply that it was deleted by somebody is.
But grilling Amy for something Ethan said isn't appropriate.
Ethan needs to come on and say, I did or didn't say it. She didn't even bring it up. This has been drummed up by the Commons, then pushed by Casey Reynolds. And then she's asked about it. And then Casey, in that transcript, keeps coming back and coming back and coming back to that topic. He could not let it go.
Well, I think he, as he said, he was expecting a much different answer.
But he would not let it go. She kept saying, I want the document. And the answer, all she said in there that he claims that brought her back was, yeah, I'd like to hear it, myself. Well, I would like to hear it from the horse's mouth. If he said it, I'd like to hear it. Because if there's a context to it, then she could definitively say, Ethan was joking about that, and you guys should understand.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's a fair point. But like I said before, I've been asked questions that I think are ridiculous, or I've been pressed on things that people are trying to trap me. And eventually I just like, I'm done. I answered the question. I don't want to talk about that anymore. If that's what you insist on talking about, have a good day.
Right.
And
I agree.
That's
And I think even beyond the topic of this, it is telling to see how somebody behaves under pressure. What do they do when they're in hot water? How do they handle difficult questions? How do they handle, and as I said, I think Amy Demboski missed an opportunity to take the high road and to say, I'm quite certain this is untrue. Of course, ask Mr. Berkowitz about it, but, I just think that she was.
How is she going to say that when she heard this conversation herself on the radio, as are a number of people I've talked to? I didn't hear it, but I used to know the joking nature of it. Unless you hear it again, how can you make that definitive statement, make assessments about it? She is taking the high road by saying, look, go ask him. I don't know anything about it other than what I can recall.
I just want to say we got to go to a break soon. Eric, I apologize. We'll get to you right after the break. Sorry about that. But yeah, Terrence, I mean, I see what you're saying. And like I said, I just, part of me thinks it's so bizarre that this is even, it says a lot about, I don't know, it says a lot about what some people want to talk about
or believe,
discuss or believe, because frankly, this is
it's
so beyond
absurd.
my understanding of what's rational or reasonable to talk about in this matter. So I see what you're saying. Yeah, I appreciate you calling in. We're going to go to a break. I want to apologize to Eric. We'll get to you after the break. You want to talk about, he's talking about an event that Victims for Justice is having this weekend. Wow. It's like even awkward talking. And for me, it's like, I don't want to, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about,
we can talk about other awkward stuff later.
I want to talk about property taxes, because I'm paying those. This is Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm joined by Jeannie Devon, co-host. Give us a call, 569-1080, and Anchorage 357-5868. We are going to come back and we're going to have Eric Cordero from Victims for Justice calling in. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. This is Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm joined in studio by Jeannie Devon, KOAN 1080 AM 95.1 FM in Anchorage, 1020 AM 92.5 FM in the Valley. We are now joined on the phone by Eric Cordero.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello,
Hi,
Eric.
Jeannie.
How are you, buddy?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
We have had the pleasure of meeting on several occasions.
Absolutely.
It's always been enjoyable. You took a nice picture of me at an event and with my cool hat.
That's right. Photography is one of my hobbies, but I'm here to talk about Victims for Justice and some very interesting events in coordination with the National Crime Victims' Rights Week.
Okay.
So I don't know how much you know about Victims for Justice, but it's a small agency that has been here in Alaska for 30 years. And we advocate and do provide very comprehensive services to innocent victims of violent crimes and surviving family members of homicide victims. The Office of Victims' Crimes at the national level, they support local communities to do observances during the National Crimes Victims' Rights Week. This National Crimes Week was established by President Reagan in 1981, so it's been going on for many years. So our kickoff event will be this Saturday at 6 p.m. at the Denina Center, and it's an awards banquet in which we recognize the amazing work of people throughout the community and agencies that provide services to victims or that do meaningful things for victims. And dozens of people and agencies were nominated this year, and we're just very pleased about that. We have a really great keynote speaker, special agent from the FBI that has been working in sex trafficking and human trafficking cases. And so she will talk about that, and she will talk about the theme of this year's National Crimes Victims' Rights Week, which is engaging communities, empowering victims.
Yeah, no, I think one thing, and I'm somewhat familiar with Victims for Justice because a company I used to work for, we did some work with them, some computer work, so I'm familiar with them. And I think one thing it might be easy to overlook is, after a crime is committed, there's people who have to deal with the fallout of that. And sometimes a couple of years ago, a good friend of mine was, shot and killed outside of a bar downtown, and I happened to be there, and it had still to this day has an impact on me.
Right, absolutely. And even if someone who's not going through a crisis, just working with the legal system and the court system can be overwhelming. So
my friend who got killed over 2 years ago, the trial still hasn't started.
Absolutely, yeah. And we see that happening a lot of times. And one of the first things we do is we have advocates that make sure that the victims are safe. And then we look at what are the priorities for this person right now, and then what's next. And we provide them with everything from referrals to helping them throughout the court hearings and things like that. And so we're very excited about the event on Saturday, and then on Monday at 12 p.m. At the Park Strip, we have our annual tree ceremony, and 10 members of the community will hang a different color ribbon representing a type of crime, and then all community members are welcome to hang another ribbon in there to represent either themselves or a friend or a loved one who has suffered a crime.
And that's Monday?
That's Monday at 12. Okay. It's 725 9th Street. We start at the First Methodist Church, and then we walk across the street to the tree.
That's the Park Strip, right?
That's the Park Strip.
Okay.
And First Lady Donna Walker will be there, and she'll read a proclamation from the governor.
Okay.
And so we're looking forward to that as well.
Well, Eric, I really appreciate the work you're doing. And again, the dinner is this Saturday at 6 p.m. at the Denina Center?
Yes. And for more information, victimsforjustice.org.
Okay.
And we have all the information about both events there.
Eric, well, I appreciate you calling in. It's good work you're doing, and I hope your events are successful. I will try to come to the one on Monday.
Okay, thank you. I thank you both for having me on your show.
Yep, thank you for calling.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's a great organization. Like I said, I had a friend that was, it's not easy dealing with that. Especially when you see it and you try, it's senseless, and you just keep wondering why did it have to happen? There's no answers, and there's a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
let's go to, we have a bunch of callers here lined up. Karen,
Yeah,
you're on
hi,
with
Jeff.
Hello.
Hey, I'm going to call you guys both out on the carpet, you and Jeannie, because you both say this is a ridiculous thing to be talking about Amy, and yet you're the one that brought on this John guy from the Alaska Commons or whatever it is.
I said the topic. I said just having this topic is ridiculous, but I mean the fact is it's out there, and I think she could have done a much better job dealing with it.
How so? Because, and I'm asking this question to Jeannie, did you read the transcript? You accused Amy of not handling it in a professional manner, and that when, you know, she's under fire, under pressure, she didn't do a good job. I argue that she could not have done a better job. She was very classy. She answered very honestly. She said, go to the source. Shouldn't a news person know that? Go to the source.
It's all you, Jeannie.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, yes. But I think that, you know, to deny that there is subtext and there is, you know, I mean, it left a weird feeling with me. And I'm not saying that, you know, she was a disaster, but, you know, if I said to you, so, you know, do you think that your neighbor is really an alien? And you said, well, I think you should probably go talk to him. I would have a different response than if you said to me, Jeannie, really an alien? I highly doubt that, but you can go check that source if you want, but I really don't think that this is even an issue.
But you're one person and you're taking your feelings or how you would respond
Right.
and broadcasting it all over the airwaves as
I
though,
am.
Yeah, you're on right now, aren't you?
Well,
Okay,
hey,
listen, I wanna address this
wait.
one
To be fair, radio shows many times. Jeannie's almost always helped me, and I was asked to do this 2 weeks ago. So this isn't us coming on here to. It was a coincidence.
Well, I need to hold over until break.
Well,
we have
3 more callers lined
Well,
up. So
I'm not done. I have one very serious question to ask. Bonnie, don't hang up
that's
on
up
me.
to Bonnie because I'm just.
You got to go to the source.
I'm just doing the radio. So Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm joined in studio by Jeannie Devon. We'll be right back.
Crazy about Elvis, loves horses, and her boyfriend too. Now I'm free, free falling.
This is Jeff Landfield. We're back. I'm filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm joined in studio by Jeannie Devon. We're 1080 AM, 95.1 FM in Anchorage, 1020 AM, 92.5 FM in the Valley. We're discussing the kind of situation with the Marrow situation with Amy and Ethan, and then we have quite a few callers in the line. We're joined in studio by Christopher Constant. Once we get through these callers, we're going to talk to Chris about what's going on in Fairview and a recent development with a liquor store. But first, we're going to get through these callers. Bonnie, who's next? Is it Mike?
Karen, if she can finish her
Hey,
one
Karen.
question real quick.
Real quick, 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. Am I on?
You are.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, because I'm big about going to the source, there's one missing piece here that nobody's talking about. Where the hell is Bernadette? Bernadette came into Amy's campaign, I think, as a manager.
She had the Unity baby.
That is no excuse. I've had 5 children. That's no excuse. Okay, all she has to do is come out and make a public statement. Either yes, that was said with that interview with Ethan Berkowitz, or no, it wasn't said. So what is she hiding? I'm concerned about the fact that she will not come out and make a statement, and yet she says she's a proponent and working with Amy. I think she's a political operative. Also, don't forget that Casey used to date Bernadette. So, and now.
How do you know that? Did she? I don't know that.
It's common knowledge.
I knew they were friendly, but I don't.
Okay, and also we also know that Casey is dating Berkowitz's campaign manager. So I'm
No. I think she's the political director.
Okay,
Amy.
political director. Correct me then. Thank you for that, Jeff. Anyways, so I think both of those are political operatives trying to destroy Amy's campaign from within. Bernadette, get on the phone. No more excuses.
I mean that's
Go to the source.
That's a fair point. I mean, if
Yeah,
Bernadette should, but political operatives have been around for a long time, and I think this is unfortunately part of the game. We need to go to the next caller. We have Michael. Thank you, Karen. Michael, can you hear us?
Yeah, I sure can. Thanks for taking my
Yeah,
call.
no
Jeff.
problem. What do you got?
I don't know how many people were listening to that show, but I will tell you that I was listening to it, and in particular, the
Patient Zero.
The show with regard to where Ethan made those comments.
Okay.
And in particular, the reason for that is because he made a statement about being a libertarian in his principles, and that's what perked my interest because I'm a libertarian. And so I was listening, and he said, well, he's a libertarian, and he took the right position in the sense that he said that he doesn't think the government should be involved in personal relationships. The problem is, then he went into a diatribe and started talking about all kinds of things like that, and off the cuff, he said those things. And Bernadette went off on him on it. So, clearly I'm telling you, this isn't conjecture. This did happen a while back. So, I'm not verbatim speaking. I'm just telling you that I heard it. He did say it. He made reference in the sense that he was libertarian, in that sense that he believed that the government shouldn't be involved in those relationships. But I'm clearly telling you that I'm coming out on record and saying that I clearly heard him say that.
No, I appreciate
it's not conjecture from my point.
I appreciate the call. And like I said, I did hear somebody earlier today reference that the topic was more about could somebody potentially marry a son or daughter, a son, a dad or a mom, whatever, for benefits, healthcare benefits. And I guess that is a different topic.
I mean, there's certainly a discussion in libertarian circles about, having a contractual relationship with another adult, whether it be, whatever relationship that may be, to simply ensure things like rights of succession or hospital visitation or tax write-off or all the benefits that are enjoyed by people who are traditional married couples.
Sure. But I want to bring out one other.
So I don't, I mean, was he
he
talking about that, or was he talking about, this whole other topic?
No, they were just basically on the cuff. They were just talking about relationships, and Ethan took a position that he was libertarian in nature, that he felt that the government shouldn't be involved in it. And then he went off and gave some conversation, and he brought up about a father and a son, and he said he didn't even care about that at all. So, but I want to bring up another thing is that clearly, Jeannie, and I want you to speak to this. There's articles out there both with Alaska Commons and in Mud Flats with regard to Amy and her relationships with her children. And I think, again, this is, I really question whether or not how this is right now. It's very clear that there's a smear campaign going on about Amy's children And I'd like you to address
Thank
that
you.
in particular.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I absolutely loathe bringing up anything personal with people. I've had the opportunity to do so many times and have not, and I have only done it twice. And the only reason that I have done it is when somebody will come out with an assertive political stance on an issue which their own life contradicts. For instance, Amy Demboski is against Medicaid expansion, which would provide, I mean, you can argue for or against it. There's legitimate arguments, but 40,000 Alaskans would get health coverage from that. I'm fine with that. I think it's great. I don't mind throwing a few pennies in the hat for my fellow Alaskans to be able to be covered. Amy Demboski, when she was pregnant, was on Medicaid. I think that's great. I'm happy that she's healthy and her baby was healthy, and I have no problem with it. But don't, and this was a problem with Joe Miller too. And I like Joe Miller in many ways. We agree on a lot of things, but you can't avail yourself and your family and your children of a government service and then pull the ladder up behind you and say that nobody else gets that service.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Let's go to the next caller, Allison. Can you hear me? Allison, you're on with Jeff and Jeannie. I'm not hearing Allison. Let's go to Nancy.
Yes, this
Hello.
is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
And I didn't hear the original interviews that in which Ethan had made the comment, but I did hear the interview where Casey had approached Amy on this issue. And I'll be honest with you, I think every single one of these broadcasters, yourselves included, should actually have an apology to Amy and her family. And I'll say that primarily because a comment was made earlier in the show that it was her fault, it was Amy's fault, because these comments that supposedly Pastor Prevost had made kept getting repeated over and over again. Well, I have seen Amy's Facebook page, and I had never heard anything about Pastor Prevost's comments. The first time I heard anything about those particular comments was when Casey approached Amy on the issue. And Amy specifically said, I don't really have a comment on this. That's something that you need to take up. And then she appropriately said, well, if you need me to comment on this because he was pushing the issue, I would like to hear it. To me, that is giving Ethan respect. That is saying, you know what, this isn't a fight that I need to be making. But Casey kept pushing and pushing.
Well, and
now,
real quick, like I said before, I think it's horrible people have to deal with this stuff. And I've run for office, and I'm in some ways kind of politically involved. And but like Jeannie said, when you align yourself with certain people and say certain things, you're gonna have to deal with the repercussions. And I think she could have handled it much better. And there's arguments for that.
That may very well be true, but I think all of the broadcasters could have handled this a lot better as well. And instead of holding Amy accountable for what Ethan had said or did not say, that you guys go search out.
Well, but she kind of corroborated it. She said, "I heard it," and I
so
listened to the
maybe
trends.
she did. Who are you to say that Amy did not hear it? I've heard several people on this show that said I heard it too. So really,
Well, something was said. I think we can all agree something. But like going back to, if somebody asks me, when I stopped beating my wife, I'm not married, by the way. I what do I say to that? It's just
Well, she also said, well, if he did say it, this is what I heard, but I really don't know the context in which he was saying it. She said over and over again, he could have been joking, but I don't know. That's something that if you would pull it up and let me hear it, then I'll
that's
give you
the
a
same
statement
thing,
on it.
like, is your neighbor an alien? Well, I don't know. It could be.
Maybe he's an illegal. Maybe he's an illegal alien.
Oh, I was thinking of like outer space aliens.
Well, the thing is, it's really not her place to make that statement, whether he is an alien or he is not.
Well, I
Quite
think
frankly,
it's kind of clunky the way that she answered it, and to say, I don't know if my neighbor is an alien. I mean, you can't stop people from formulating an opinion based
cannot
upon how you
hold her
answer a question.
responsible.
No, she's
You
only
cannot
responsible for the way that she answered. And I think that that's what people have a problem with.
He tried several times to say, I don't want to answer that. And it was Casey that kept pushing the issue. And so, honestly, I think Casey is the one who has blown this out of proportion, not Amy. She didn't advertise any of this. Like I said, I I follow Pastor Prevo and I follow Amy. I had never heard anything about this until he kept pushing the issue, and it caught my attention because he was being obnoxious.
Well, I agree.
Kept making her.
Nancy, I agree. The whole thing's bizarre. I want to thank you for calling. We have Chris Constant in studio. Chris, can you stay over for after the break? Are you on? Are you mic'd in? Not working. Okay, we have Chris Constant in studio from Fairview Community Council. We're going to get that resolved. We're going to go to a break in a second, but when we come back, I want to talk with Chris about a recent issue in Fairview with the liquor store that Spirits of Alaska, which is no longer operating, and I want to talk about why that is. So, Jeff Landfield, I'm filling in for Glen Biegel with Jeannie Devon, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM in Anchorage, 1020 AM, 92.5 FM in the Valley. You can give us a call, 569-1080 in Anchorage, 375-5868. Chris Constant, we come back. We'll be right back.
성숙해 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 여자 이때다 싶으면 묶었던 머리 푸는 여자 웬만한 노출보다 야한 여자 그런 감각적인 여자 나는 선어해 점잖아 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 선어해 내가 되면 완전 미쳐버리는 선어해 근육보다 사상이 울퉁불퉁한 선어.
Hey everybody, gather round. I'm here to give you anything you like. You want free college, energy, mortgages, whatever you like. You have come to the right place. Why? I'll tell you why. Who can take your money? Who can take your money? With a twinkle in their eye. A twinkle in their eye. Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government. The government. The government can. The government can. Who can tax the sunrise? Who can tax the sunrise? Who can tax the trees? Who can tax the trees? Let you run a business and collect up all the fees. The government. The government. Oh, the government can. The government can. And the government can, cause they mix it up, realize and make it all taste good. Make it all taste good. The government takes everything we make to pay for all of their solutions. Healthcare, climate change, pollution. Throw away the Constitution. And who can give a bailout? Who can give a bailout? Tell us to behave. Tell us to behave. And make the founding fathers roll over in the grave. The government. The government. Oh, the government can. The government can. And the government can, cause they mix it up well as they make it all taste good. Make it all taste good. The government takes everything we make. They're power hungry and malicious. Their economics are fictitious. Soon we'll have to eat our dishes.
Okay, we're back. Jeff Landfield and filling in with Jeannie Devon from the Mudflats. We're joined in studio by Christopher Constant. Hello, Christopher.
Hello there, Jeff.
You are the president of the Fairview Community Council.
Yes, sir.
Among other titles.
Yep.
So
Hail
what I want
to the chief.
Hail to the dun, 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 dun.
There's a lot to talk about. What I want to talk about specifically, and this kind of hits home to me because the company I work for used to have our office in Fairview, and we moved for mostly these chronic inebriate and these problems that exist there. And recently, the Spirits of Alaska liquor store, you guys have been involved with Fairview in trying to make them more accountable for what's going on. And what happened?
Okay, so 18 months ago, in November of 2013, actually, somebody that Jeannie knows really well, with a bunch of her friends, came to the Fairview Community Council waving pitchforks and torches, screaming, "You must shut down all the liquor stores in this neighborhood because they're tearing apart the fabric of our neighborhood." They were mad, and the way community councils work is you put a resolution on the table. And so they came in screaming and shouting with the resolution that said, "Shut them down." Well, the executive board, my peers at the council, sat back and said, "Wait a minute. Those store owners have rights. You know, they're property owners here, and they have businesses, and those businesses are their real property. We have to respect their rights. They have a vote just like you."
These people who came in were living in Fairview or working in Fairview? Or,
yes,
okay.
yes. They have property owners. In fact, the gentleman who owns the building used to be a tenant in.
Okay.
And so plus residents and landowners, and they were mad. And understandably, we literally have people who walk through our neighborhoods who are so sick from alcohol, they're falling down, they're sliding off of buildings. I watched once a woman walking down Gamble Street. She was so intoxicated, she made an immediate 90-degree turn and walked straight in front of a truck towing a boat. And the poor truck driver slams on his brakes. He can't stop. He knocks her down. I'm watching this go on, and that woman is down for a while, and she's rolling around moaning. She gets picked up by public safety and the EMS folks, and she's actually fine. She was so sauced, she just rubber banded to the ground, and that truck owner is scarred for life. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he had to watch that happen.
We used to have I used to work down there. Our company was in the building across from Cars on Gamble. And I mean, you'd see just this crazy stuff every day, and the cops would get called out almost every day, and there'd be these people, and you know, it's I think we all agree it's a problem. Nobody's saying it's not a problem.
Right. So 18 months ago, we began a process. We decided, no, we're not going to ask them to shut down. What we would rather do is work with both of the liquor stores. There are two. There's the Oak and Keg there at the corner of 13th and Gamble, and there was the Spirits of Alaska at 12th and Gamble.
The ghetto cars, I refer to it.
Some people call it. I call it the people's cars. But,
sorry, I'm just repeating what I've heard.
Well, you know, that's another story.
It's not bad now. They redid the whole thing.
I used to get a sandwich there every day.
Here's the deal. The name Ghetto Cars has some real stickiness to it because back in the old days, in the early part of Anchorage, around the 40s, 50s, when we really started to grow population, there was what's called a red line district.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that.
And the red line district, this is the place in town where the black people were forced to live and couldn't buy out of by the bankers in town. And so that history has stuck, and the people don't even know when they're saying ghetto cars, that was actually an enforced ghetto in this town. You know, they were literally forced. Wow. Anyhow, so that's a different story.
Now I feel bad.
So thanks. Good. Now you know. Well, so we began this process, and the process was to help the businesses who were providing the liquor to the people who are tearing apart our neighborhood because they're so sick, to try to change the way they do their business and make it better. And we had an equal process with both. We had a committee that sat forth to work with both the store owners and the people who were so angry that wanted to shut them down. And we came up with an action plan and a work plan that said, we're going to take these steps to improve the quality of life here. We're going to ask you to increase your staffing. We're going to ask you to monitor so you're not selling to people who are straw purchasing. A straw purchase is when a drunk person is too drunk. They give their money to someone who's more sober. They go in and buy the alcohol and then distribute the alcohol outside the store.
When I was younger, we called that a hey mister. We'd hang out 18, 17. Hey mister, you want to buy a six-pack, keep the change?
And now the state
sounds very nefarious.
The state, yeah, no.
We all did it.
Where's Ethan? So that goes back to this idea, you know, where they changed the laws when you used to buy for minors. Now it's such a harsh penalty. You'll think 2 and 3 and 4 times before doing that because you'll lose everything if you get busted doing that. And so
furnishing is not a big. That's a big deal, especially young people, right? That's a big
And so anyhow, we began this process to work, and immediately it became apparent that the folks from the Oak and Keg, which is a corporation, of course, they started showing up, 2 and 3 members of the staff, the manager of the car store, the manager of the Oak and Keg, the district manager for all of the Oak and Kegs. They came to all of our meetings, and they improved the staffing levels, and they started turning people away. I started getting secondhand reports from my friends. oh my God, I saw them actually turn a drunk person
Boots
away.
on the ground.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Really happening in that store. And so, well,
That's already the law, right? That's
Right,
already, you can't serve
exactly.
alcohol to a drunk. Yeah.
no. And so at the same time, we had the issues at the Spirits of Alaska not changing. And the owner of that store came to several of the meetings, but she actually missed about half of the meetings that we had over the
And
course
that's
of the year.
That's a local one-off. That's not a corporate.
Yes,
shop.
exactly. It's
Okay.
a family store. And so the changes started to become very apparent. So then we asked the CAP team, the Community Action Policing team with Anchorage Police, to begin a process of monitoring both stores. And so they sat down and actually made some video documentation of the way business was running at both businesses. And the videos were stark and horrifying. At one point, they caught a sexual assault. You know, they had people passing out drunk, sliding down the building. You have mobs of people outside passing around bottles, the transaction of cash for the straw purchases.
Wow.
And they did this not just once. They did it in the winter and the summer, so you could see it wasn't just a one-time thing. It was
Right.
actually the condition before we started working, and it was the condition after we were working at the Spirits. Those issues diminished at the Oak and Keg. And, you know, the folks who owned the store, the Spirits, complained that, well, it's because they're corporate and they have the money to hire a, quote, $70,000 security guard. And so the neighborhood isn't actually so concerned about your profit margin as a liquor store. The neighborhood's more concerned with safety and the public health because it's really devastating.
Yeah, and I'm very hesitant for any, the city, the state, the government to say you can't operate your business. But at some point, having a liquor license isn't a right; it's a privilege, and there's things associated with that privilege. And
Right.
I think it's reasonable to
You have a certain
address those.
responsibility to your community
Yep.
to be safe.
And then they make the argument, and it's a fair argument, that they had no violations in the last 2 years. Just before we began this process, they had a couple of violations serving to minors. And so that was on the record. But that was before the review of this license. It was in the last license.
This was a
every 2
renewal?
years. Yes.
Okay.
Every 2 years they're renewed. And it's incredibly rare that the ABC takes someone's license. And it's even rarer that the Anchorage Assembly will vote to protest a license.
Is there a press? I mean, has it happened before?
It has happened extraordinarily rarely. And mostly it happens because of unpaid taxes, right? That's how it usually happens. This is we went through an 18-month process in August, as it became very apparent, August of 14, that the stores were different. We couldn't pass a resolution that said both stores had complied. And so we divided our resolution and passed a resolution that said we are satisfied with the work being done by the Oak and Keg, but we had to continue working with the Spirits of Alaska. At that point, she showed up at a meeting or two, but she really stopped showing up. And we continued to have it as an agenda item at every meeting, August, September, October, November, December. We didn't meet in January. In February, finally, the renewal came up. The question had to be asked, do we support the renewal of this license? And the vote was 28-2 at the council to not continue working with her, and 28-1 to protest the license.
Wow,
That's pretty decisive.
My council, we never have that many people.
Well, and that was,
I know some of them like O'Malley, Fairview. Some of the it's to me the ones in the really wealthy areas are very active, and the ones in the really poor areas are very active. The
Right.
ones in the middle, not so active.
we'll get an average 50 to 70 people that show up.
Oh,
and
we
they're just
have
not
we
all
have about
voters.
six.
Yeah, it's
6 to
very
8.
active.
People show up to ours. Taco Campbell.
It's actually a fun meeting most of the time. Sometimes it's really depressing, like when you're voting to take away a woman's property because the business is harming the neighborhood.
And I can appreciate that. It's sometimes running those meetings is it's a real art to run the meeting.
It's
Follow
fun.
the agenda, let people talk, but keep things going. It's not easy.
You get a lot of very interesting people who come to public meetings, very interesting people. And one of our hallmarks of the success of our effort is that we are open to everybody and we will hear you, even if you are pretty far out there.
So I'm the chair of the Federation for Community Councils, and that's a meeting of somebody from each community council. There's 38 people, and I've been chairing that for a while. And we get some real excited people.
Yes, very much.
Real animated sometimes.
So back to what happened. So about 3 weeks ago now, the assembly took our protest up, and it was actually in March that they formally filed the resolution of protest. And then the owner of the store asked for 3 weeks to review more materials. So she had her due process, and they gave her 3 weeks. And so after that 3-week process, they had the hearing, and the hearing went on for about 2.5 hours. It was quite a hearing, on and on and on.
At the assembly.
Yes.
Mhm.
And in the final vote, it was 6-5 at the assembly to affirm the protest. And there were some surprise votes. It wasn't down party lines, and it wasn't a clean vote, but all of Eagle River voted, of course, to let her maintain her business, both of their representatives. And South Anchorage voted with Fairview, which was very nice. And so that happened, and that was a thundercrack to other operators. And then when we met just yesterday at the ABC board
We
meeting,
got about 1 minute left, so
they took
you know.
their time. The package store owner had half an hour to talk, and then we were each given 2 to 3 minutes to make our case. And I got my 3 minutes. They took their vote, and the vote was 3-1 to uphold the assembly's protest.
from the ABC board.
From the ABC
So
board.
license is revoked.
License is revoked. And now the question goes
Could she sell it?
No, it's gone. She could have sold it before, but
Those are worth $250,000, aren't they?
I couldn't tell you how much they're worth, but they are worth a lot of money, and it's the
Ooh.
core of her business.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it's a devastating thing.
Well,
and-
but I'm assuming everybody realized that, and we're not voting lightly.
Exactly.
Right, well, a precedent was set that you've just highlighted. So, Chris, I'm sorry, I want to continue this, but we have to go to a break. I want to thank you for coming in, Christopher Constant from the Fairview Community Council. Appreciate the update. Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel. I'm joined in studio by Jeannie Devon from the Mudflats. We'll be right back with the last segment.
Thank you.
Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place settle down. It'll all be clear.
Okay, we're back. Jeff Landfield filling in for Glen Biegel with Jeannie Devon from the Mudflats. Last segment. We want to get to some of the callers that have been waiting. I apologize about the wait, but we have time for you now. Allison, you're up.
Hi,
Hi. First of all, great show today, guys, with Alaska Commons and Victims for Justice and the Fairview Community Council. I really enjoyed listening.
We try to mix it up.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring it back to the mayor's race, of course, as I'm a registered Republican super voter, and I am grappling with Amy Dabowski for the very same reason a previous caller mentioned. She's new to the political scene. I've noticed her make these kind of, I wouldn't really say faux pas, but she says things sometimes, and I don't know if it's due to lack of experience, but it really takes me back. And I just wanted to bring that up and kind of talk to you guys about that if you've noticed anything too.
So were you a voter before, or were you who were you supporting, and who did you vote? If you don't mind me asking, who did you vote for?
I supported Halco in the general, and I would like to bring up that I believe that Casey voted for Amy Domboski in the primary. So for all those things, he's a political operative. He took it really far with his vote. But anyway, at the KTVA debate when there was 4 candidates, she said something about how they asked a question about the 80s in Alaska and how the decline then, and she said that she wasn't around in the 80s, so she couldn't speak to that. And I was a little horrified by that because it's a real issue with the price of oil dropping. My husband and I are buying a house, and we had to think about that for a while. It was a big concern for us.
Right.
We're going to just, play that off.
And
that wasn't around.
It was a very definitive time in the history of Anchorage. And, it's not ancient history. I moved here in the very early 90s. So technically I wasn't here, but that's something that's part of the lore of this place. It's part of its history. It's part of the recent economic past. And yeah, I think she should have been able to at least speak to it. But it's really difficult because you have to walk that line. A lot of people don't want a career politician or an older person. They like somebody who's younger with vision, who maybe is like one of the people and not entrenched in a corrupt institution.
Are you describing me, Jeannie? Are you describing me to the T?
But you have to walk a line between that because, some experience is good and necessary if you want to be able to do a good job.
That's a good point, Allison. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Linda. Linda, can you hear us?
Hi, Jeff, and
Hello.
hi, Jeannie.
Hi, Linda.
And I am calling because while everybody's spending time on this ridiculous Ethan issue, there's an issue that I believe the Mudflats brought forward today. Back in 2013, the Assembly voted on a resolution giving $2,900 to the Knik Arm Bridge, and Amy Domboski, who always
2,900.
Yeah, just 2,900. It was a small amount.
Oh, that's a
but her she always outs her fireman husband when AFD money comes up, and because she doesn't want to have a conflict of interest. Amy Domboski said nothing, and I believe that she has a reason that she should have declared a conflict of interest. Isn't that correct, Jeannie?
Yes, she and her husband actually both own what appear to be very nice plots of land with buildings on them in Willow, and right in the area where a potential Knik Arm Bridge would kind of empty out on the other side. And, like you said, it's like, people may feel that is affecting her vote. People may feel that it's not, but she needs to disclose that. And especially if she's willing to impose eminent domain on the people that live in Government Hill and say, you have to give up your home. I mean,
she never said that, by the way.
We were.
She did not say that. She said that was a last resort. I gotta clarify things.
She
here.
supports the bridge.
Yes,
The
but
bridge
she
has
says
to go
eminent
somewhere.
domain is a last resort, and it is in the Constitution. So I just want to clarify that for
But she
the listeners.
she hardly knew what eminent domain was.
That's
Actually.
ridiculous.
That's
Everybody
it.
knows what eminent domain is.
I was at the debate, and she looked like a deer in the headlights when Ethan said the word eminent domain.
Yes.
It took her a few minutes, and then she said, well, yes. She said yes, and she didn't, do a whole lot of clarification as to when that would be okay. She even said about as people paying their property taxes, as if they still paid property taxes on land that was bought from them.
Well, this is
domain.
this is why I get upset when that Spinell guy is always pumping up the bridge, because he owns a whole bunch of land over there.
Right.
And that's relevant to the topic. We have thanks for the call, Linda. We have one more caller I want to get to before we the show's over. Judy. And it's a busy segment. I guess Judy's not there. So hello?
Oh,
Can you hear me, Judy?
yeah. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Hi, Judy.
Yeah, thank you. Hi. How are you? Well, first of all, I am surprised that I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm so surprised, Devin, that you're Miss Devin, that you're concerned about her not knowing the night that he did not know anything. He didn't know much about the municipal budget, and he didn't know that the assembly had passed a 5.5% property tax, and I guess that would concern me more, being more current.
That concerns me too. Yeah, you should know
that really concerns
absolutely
me. Yeah,
legitimate.
okay. And,
I mean,
and I'm just going to say that I'm calling, and I do volunteer in Amy's campaign, but I'm going to tell you that, you know, I don't know you, Miss Devin, but I have read some of your articles a couple times because I tend to support conservative women, and I just wish that when you're doing the things like Mud Flats does, because they really do things. They look for trash. That's what they are. They write things about people they may or may not know that are true. And so I think I would just respect you a little more if you just came out and said, I don't care for conservatives. I sure don't care for conservative women. And that's why I write the trash that I do. We knew that the Anchorage Daily, and you can laugh all you want, but I happen to help Kathy Giesel, and the same trash was written on her mud flat. Why haven't you looked and tried to find out why Ethan Berkowitz was not rehired when he came back from his job in Antarctica as an assistant district attorney? Isn't it amazing to me that your newspaper...
Wait, Ethan was in Antarctica?
Yeah, he was an environmental inspector. He was a district attorney.
If you find
here.
something like this, you should probably send it to me as a tip, as most people do.
Oh, well, really? And you would
Hey,
really
I have
print
written.
something against
I
him,
have
are you?
written.
Yeah,
Hold
can
on
you
a
tell
sec.
me who?
Hang
What
on.
have you written against? Have you dug for Ethan?
We got to wrap it up.
Berkowitz
We have 2 minutes left. One more caller.
I have
so you
written.
know what? We all know who you are and what you do.
I know.
Don't-
I have
hey,
written a piece totally opposing Ethan Berkowitz, a scathing piece when he was running for governor. I have written a scathing piece against Mike Dugan. I have written against many Democrats who have done things
But
that
you know
I don't
what?
agree
When
is
you
true.
bring something up when someone was 19 years old and involves a child that they have,
I don't care about a
on
child,
you.
and I didn't bring
Yes,
up a
you did.
child
Well, you
except in the context of Medicaid. Medicaid.
Okay, well, we're starting to get a little it's getting intense. We got one more caller. Doyle, let's get to you before the break.
Love
We
you,
have
mean it.
2 minutes left for the show. Doyle, go ahead.
Boy, you guys have done a really good job smearing Amy. I wasn't sure who I was going to vote for, but now I guess I'll vote for her.
All right.
We're affecting people.
That's right.
Well, no, actually you're not, because here's
You
the
just
thing.
said-
You're talking about eminent domain, and you just threw a bunch of accusations out towards her because she happens to own property.
I'm just saying she should have disclosed it.
Well, no, hold on.
You can make up your own mind.
You had your say. So, my family homesteaded in Anchorage, and we did everything we could do to make Anchorage a thriving place so that our property went up in value.
Yeah, no, I mean, we should all do
I
that.
don't know what your problem is with
She didn't
her
disclose it.
trying to build a bridge that actually
She can build any bridge
is
or
a
have
safe-
any property, just
But, see,
disclose
you
it.
just made an accusation against her like you were just complaining that
Come on, Doyle. It's a conflict. You should disclose that. That's reasonable.
I don't know how is that a conflict?
Because the value would go up a lot. We got 20 seconds. We got to go. The value would shoot up when that bridge gets built. So if you're supporting the bridge, you should disclose the conflict of you own property. We got to go. I want to thank Glenn for letting me host. Appreciate it, Glenn. Jeannie, thanks.
My
I think
pleasure.
we're off. We're off.